Chapter 21. Battle Between Ethnicities. Humans were carbon-based life forms, and the biological macromolecules in the human body contained carbon elements. Silicon elements and carbon elements were on the same row in the periodic table and had similar properties. Silicon-based life forms' biological macromolecules had silicon atoms in place of carbon atoms. Their bodies were several hundred times tougher than carbon-based life forms and had longer lifespans. They could live to over 1,000 years old at least. Such an inhuman ethnicity could naturally not be dealt with using regular martial arts principles. Weak points that could be lethal to humans were completely useless against this silicon giant. No matter how tough Feng Lin's fists were, they were still just flesh and blood. The toughness of silicon-based lifeforms' bodies surpassed even that of most alloys that humans had. Wanting to use a pair of fleshy fists to crush the other party was like using tofu to smash rocks, courting death. After passing through 20 levels consecutively, this was the first time Feng Lin encountered an opponent with a body that was stronger than his. Moreover, it was a lot stronger. His opponent was like an extremely tough rock, making it hard for him to attack. Moreover, this silicon giant seemed to also possess a mysterious power that could allow it to control rocks. It could control rocks and send them smashing down from the distance, forming a rain of rocks. Regardless if it was close or long-distance combat, Feng Lin was completely suppressed. This was the first time he had encountered such a helpless situation. However, his actions didn't slow down because of this. He continued to charge on forward. What is he doing? Is he courting death? The silicon giant's body is comparable to that of an alloy. Ordinary punches and kicks are ineffective towards it. This is a crushing difference in terms of two lifeforms' levels. No martial arts would be able to make up for the difference. He's probably thinking of giving up. After all, he has no more chances of winning. The head teachers blabbered on mercilessly, pointing out without any restraints, thinking that Feng Lin was courting death. At the side, the female head teacher was gritting her teeth in anger, but she couldn't say anything in rebuttal. It was because she was thinking about the same things. Feng Lin naturally had no idea that these people were ridiculing him. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. It was true that forcibly attacking a silicon-based lifeform head-on did seem as if he was courting death. But he had no other way out. The genes he had awakened were the monkey gene and stonebirth gene, not the flame gene, waterflow gene, or the whirlwind gene. Other than close combat, he had no other attacking means for long-distance battles. If he continued dodging, he would always be passively beaten up with no chances of winning. If he wished to win, he could only take the risk and charge up. Only those who dared to fight for it could win. Moreover, Feng Lin was extremely clear that the battles in this illusory martial pagoda were merely simulated battles and not real. They were closer to the different stages in a game. Since it was a game stage, then there would be a way to clear it. This was the 20th level and the relative vitality index was at 2.0. This meant that a person with a vitality of 2.0 would have hoped to win the battle. Although his vitality was only at 1.9, it wasn't as if he had no chances at all. However, the crux was on how he could find the opportunity to defeat his opponent and clinch victory. The rocks came crashing down. Feng Lin unleashed his speed to an extreme, dodging at rapid speed and using his sharp senses to look for gaps and then closing in on the silicon giant rapidly. Bang bang bang. Feng Lin's fists smashed fiercely on his opponent's body like violent blasts of wind and rain. However, Feng Lin's fingers were in extreme pain. He didn't injure his opponent, but instead dealt himself unbearable pain. After all, there was a crushing difference between the two life forms. Although the opponent's vitality had been compressed to 2.0, its constitution far surpassed that of Feng Lin's. Feng Lin was unable to do anything even though he had awakened the stone birth gene. An opponent like this gave him great despair. But there must definitely be a way to turn the tables around. Feng Lin didn't give up, but continued to look for opportunities. However, the prerequisite was that he must continue to hold on. Mighty Vedra capturing hands. The Vedra subduing devil fist was the only genetic martial art he learned at the moment. It was also his only hope in breaking the silicon giant's tortoiseshell. His two hands took a clawing stance and grabbed out fiercely toward his opponent's throat that seemed rather soft. However, upon contact, he immediately felt as if he had gripped a piece of rock and his fingers hurt a lot. The silicon giant laughed savagely. Its two fists were like venomous dragons coming out from their caves, smashing into Feng Lin and sending him flying. Feng Lin fell down hard onto the ground and then rapidly got up. His two fists presented a rock-like glow. Mighty Vedra fist. The wind formed from his palms were like blades, and strong forces shot out in all directions. The silicon giant's eyes were filled with contempt, and it didn't move at all. When the wind created by Feng Lin's palms struck on its body, it didn't even lose a single hair. It even returned a punch. Kachi. Feng Lin's two hands were clamped before his chest to block this punch. His bones released earth-shattering sounds. Vedra Dragonclaw. Bearing with the intense pain, Feng Lin didn't become discouraged. He performed another killing move from the Vedra subduing devil fist, but the fierce attack was still ineffective. The silicon giant stood on the spot, not moving an inch. It was like a big towering tree, casting down endless shadows that drowned Feng Lin. Its cold gaze assessed Feng Lin as he charged out time and time again. It was like watching an ant overestimating its own capabilities and trying to shake a big tree. There was no sight of any hope at all. Feng Lin fell down time and time again, then got back up time and time again. He charged forth as if he had gone crazy, and even when he was covered in blood and his injuries were very serious, he didn't pay them any heed. Although it was a simulated system and all the attacks were simulated, the repeated forceful impacts still caused Feng Lin to be covered in bumps and bruises, in an extremely battered state. However, Feng Lin still didn't give up. His gaze was fixed on the opponent as if a vicious wolf was staring at a ferocious tiger. Although his opponent was far stronger than him and could crush him at any moment, he still wanted to bite off a piece of his opponent even at the risk of his life. The viciousness in his eyes was very scary. When the head teachers saw this scene, they started mumbling between themselves. He's still not giving up? It's just a trial. Is there a need to risk your life like this? The only genetic martial art he excels in is just that Vedra subduing devil fist, an initial grade martial art. There are only a few moves in this technique. Moreover, he's learning them on the spot. What use could they be? Quickly admit your defeat. This is just a waste of time, and you're just harming your own body. They kept on mumbling amongst themselves. What they didn't see was that the gaze of the principal, who was standing at the very front, was now filled with increasing admiration. Such a determined gaze, with viciousness and wildness in his character. This kid is really something. What they said might be right, but Feng Lin would definitely not give up on himself. Fighting the silicon giant head-on was playing around with one's life. Could it be that he didn't know this? This battle might be just about of training, but as the opponent was a member of an extraterrestrial ethnicity, the nature of the matter was different. This was a battle between ethnicities. A battle between ethnicities was won to the bitter end. Either you die, or I die. The universe was very big, but it was also very small. Feng Lin believed that he wouldn't be forever trapped on this tiny Earth. Once he headed out into outer space, he would encounter these alien life forms sooner or later, and that would be a battle to the bitter end. If one were to lose now, there would be a chance to start over again. But what if one were to lose in the future? They would not even be able to keep their lives. Therefore, it'd be better for him to learn not to give up right now. He didn't want to lose, and he mustn't lose. It was not a matter of victory or defeat, but a matter of one's convictions. Although Feng Lin appeared to be in a very bad state, the corners of his lips curled up into a smile. It was because he had found the way to win. His actions might seem reckless, but he was just trying to prove an idea that he had on his mind. It had been a guess earlier, but now, he had received verification. In order to defeat his opponent, there was only one way about it. It was to pay a person back in his own coin. Chapter 22, wrapped around his fingers. The Vedra subduing devil fist was a ferocious and tyrannical martial art. Although it was just an initial grade low-tier martial art, its prowess wasn't weak and it had a total of 9 moves. Feng Lin kept pouncing forth, unafraid of death, clashing with his opponent head-on at the price of getting injured. He performed all 9 moves of the Vedra subduing devil fist, attacking the various critical points around the silicon giant, but the results were extremely depressing. The silicon giant did not even lose a single hair. Such actions of overestimating his own abilities might seem to be extremely foolish to other people, simply courting death. But Feng Lin was well aware that it wasn't as if he didn't gain anything at all. The Vedra subduing devil fist was his strongest move, and if this martial technique could not do anything to his opponent, then it would mean that no matter what means Feng Lin chose to take, he would not be able to deal any damage to this enemy at all. Feng Lin also felt the helplessness his previous opponents had felt when battling against him. Although they were skilled in their martial arts and could deal great damages, they were unable to break through the opponent's defense. But this didn't mean that Feng Lin was unable to win. It was true that he couldn't hurt his opponent, but that didn't mean that he was unable to kill his opponent. This might sound contradictory, but the idea was very simple. He was going to let the silicon giant harm itself. Some people might find this idea extremely outrageous, but this was not impossible. Which intelligent life form would injure themselves for no reason? What these people didn't know was that there was a saying in martial arts implying to pay the person back in their own coin, and that there was indeed a type of martial technique where one returned the opponent's force to themselves. Jeet Kune Do, Tai Chi, Jiu-Jitsu, all contained these martial principles. Hee. Lowly carbon-based bug, are you ready to accept death? There's no space in the universe for your kind to survive. All of you disgusting bugs should be wiped out. When the silicon giant saw that Feng wasn't moving an inch as if he had already given up, he immediately laughed hideously, and cold killing intent surged out like seawater. A battle between ethnicities was won to the bitter death. There was no room for mitigation. The silicon giant leaped up into the sky, surrounded by huge rocks around him, and then pounced out toward Feng Lin. It seemed to be unstoppable, wanting to crush Feng Lin into dregs. At the sight of its aggressive demeanor, Feng Lin lowered his eyelids and didn't appear too anxious. This shall be the starting point where the tables were going to be turned around. Intense fighting will once again lit up in Feng Lin's eyes as he went charging out again. Dodging the plummeting rocks, he clenched his fists, gathering his strength onto one point, and struck out fiercely toward his opponent. Things didn't seem different from before. This move again? Is he seeking death? It seems that he has no other tricks up his sleeves. This is where things are going to end. At the sight of this, everyone shook their heads. The silicon giant grinned hideously, not putting up any defense at all. Instead, it hammered both its fists down fiercely. Seeing that both parties were about to clash head-on, the head teachers shut their eyes, not daring to see the horrible sight of Feng Lin being bashed up by the giant's fists. However, the scene that followed caused them to be astonished. Feng Lin's attacks might seem to be fierce, but just as he was about to hit his opponent, he instantly drew back. His body spun like a top, and the spinning force brought one of his legs across an arching trajectory, landing fiercely on the giant's right wrist. The silicon giant's punch missed and its wrist suddenly received an immense force. Bending unnaturally, the force was sent off the course, drawing a strange angle and smashed out fiercely toward its own head. The silicon giant seemed to have been struck with a heavy blow when its fist struck himself. Shaking and wavering, it dropped to the ground with a plop. Everyone stood there agape at the scene, and their mumblings stopped abruptly. All of them watched with eyes wide open and their jaws dropping, appearing very ridiculous. Interesting. It seems that Feng Lin has discovered something. The principal muttered as an intense interest rose in him. It wasn't just toward Feng Lin's talent, but also towards Feng Lin as a person. Having been a principal for so many years, he had met geniuses of all sorts. It had been very long since he had met such an interesting student. It was the right decision to have opened up the illusory martial pagoda. This is just a coincidence. That's right. There is only one method to defeat the silicon giant, to unleash one's genetic abilities from afar. It's impossible to win in close combat against silicon-based lifeforms with their bodies being comparable to alloys. It's futile to match against the silicon giant head-on, no matter how high one's mastery in defensive martial arts is. At the sight of Feng Lin's astonishing strike, the head teachers were all stunned for a short moment before they all agreed that this was just a coincidence. They strongly believed in this, but at the next moment, it was as if they were given a smack in the face. After being struck by its own fist, the silicon giant appeared to be in a daze as it stood up wavering, shaking its head. Swoosh! Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew toward it, and it instinctively kicked out. Feng Lin dodged nimbly and kicked on its upper thigh, shifting its upward force even further. With its kick missing its target and Feng Lin's timely assist, the silicon giant was now unable to hold its balance due to its weight and great inertia. It dropped down heavily, slamming on the ground. It was super effective. After 2 consecutive effective attempts, everybody knew that this wasn't just luck in play. Feng Lin was extremely certain that he had found the way to restrain his opponent and to win. He changed his method and, for the first time, gave up on fighting forcibly head-on and started to perform the soft and gentle Tai Chi. Of course, he wasn't really performing Tai Chi, but just using its technique of returning the opponent's force onto themselves. Although the silicon giant's strength was extremely great, its movements were very clumsy. It merely relied on its body's sturdiness. Previously, Feng Lin was unable to do anything and was unable to break through its defense. However, as long as he unleashed his speed advantage and didn't forcibly take his opponent head-on, he could place himself in an undefeatable position. Using the principles of Tai Chi, he derailed his opponent's strength to destroy itself. Although its body was tough, it couldn't withstand its own punch. This was to use one's spear to attack one's own shield. The only thing Feng Lin needed to be wary of was its ability to control rocks. However, this was very simple. He would just need to stick close to the silicon giant. When he was within such a close distance, the silicon giant would hit itself if it were to send the rocks crashing down. Next, Feng Lin stuck close to the silicon giant while launching attacks consecutively. Damned bug! The silicon giant bellowed out furiously as it punched out, but its force would be redirected by Feng Lin and ended up hitting itself every single time. Towards the end, Feng Lin felt increasingly relaxed, and he even shook his head. This battle method was so effective that even he was taken by surprise. This method didn't require a profound technique, and any humans who knew a little of martial arts would be able to adopt it. It was fortunate that the silicon giant didn't excel in martial arts at all. It was born with an extremely strong body, and with its talent alone, it would be able to crush many ethnicities in the universe. Therefore, it was very hard for them to master or develop profound martial skills. Martial arts were only a tool that was used to protect oneself, allowing the weak to defeat the strong. Only humans, who were born to as a weak ethnicity, would develop profound martial arts. It was like how in the ancient Earth era where huge beasts could be found everywhere, only the apes started to learn how to use tools and fire. No other species did the same. This was because they were born to weaklings. If they didn't learn to use external objects, they would perish. Dinosaurs, Titanosuchus, and mammoths had all been dominators and stood at the top of the food chain. How could they possibly learn to make use of tools? There was neither a need nor a requirement. The same applied for martial arts. However, such lowly means that the weak humans used to protect themselves had now become Feng Lin's greatest advantage. Each time the silicon giant attacked, Feng Lin would use Tai Chi sensitivity to detect its attack in advance and then redirect the force so that the silicon giant would hit itself. In the end, things became increasingly easier for Feng Lin. He kept on redirecting the forces and had the silicon giant wrapped around his fingers. When a lion lost its sharp teeth and claws, what else can it do except for acting cute? Everyone only saw that the silicon giant, known to be vicious and cold-blooded in the universe, kept on spinning in the battlefield. It would occasionally fall down, releasing furious roars. However, not only did that not provide any deterrence, but it appeared hilarious instead. Damned carbon-based life form. What ability are you using? The silicon giant felt as if its body didn't belong to itself and kept on bellowing out. At the sight of this, the principal and the head teachers wore strange expressions. They wanted to laugh, but yet wasn't able to do that. A one-sided hot-blooded battle had suddenly changed to become a hilarious scene. They were unable to accept the great change. In the past, the only method to defeat the silicon giant was to use one's genetic ability to attack from the distance and then slowly fight it out. Other than that, there were no other ways out. No one had been able to defeat the opponent in close combat when their vitalities were similar or even weaker. Could it be that Feng Lin had managed to find a possibility in this impossible situation, discovering a second method? Chapter 23, To the Bitter End. Damned carbon-based bug. You deserve to die. The silicon giant kept spinning around on the spot without a sense of direction. It kept bellowing out, punching out all over as if it had gone crazy. Feng Lin's figure kept on flashing, appearing and disappearing, making it hard for the other party to catch him. Each time the silicon giant punched out, its force would be redirected. Some attacks were a waste of energy, and some attacks strangely ended up with it hitting itself. Feng Lin's strength was a far cry from his opponent's, but he ended up miraculously taking over command of the situation, leaving people in great bewilderment. Tai Chi returned the opponent's force onto themselves, allowing the weak to win against the strong. Feng Lin knew his own limitations, and no longer forcibly took his opponent head-on. Instead, he tried to sense the other party's force and then use his own to change the opponent's, causing the opponent's attacks to be unable to achieve any success. It took enormous effort to forcibly clash with the head of the train that was moving at rapid speed, but it only required the removal of a chunk of rail in order to let the train divert from its course. The idea was the same. The silicon giant relied on its talent in battles and didn't have many techniques. Therefore, it was now wrapped around in Feng Lin's fingers and was unable to resist at all. Damn it. Damned bug. The more the silicon giant bellowed, the more helpless it felt. It could only feel that this damned carbon-based lifeform was like a flea, jumping around on its body, but it was unable to catch him at all. This kid has really done it. Unbelievable. How does he manage to restrain a silicon giant in battle? His battle instincts are too terrifying. No matter what prejudices they had toward Feng Lin, These head teachers all had great praises toward his astonishing performance. At the same time, they also felt great shame. Why was such an outstanding student not in their class? To be able to put up such a great fight against the silicon giant on the 20th level when he only had a vitality of 1.5. Although it was impossible for him to win, with him already possessing such a great battle prowess, what would happen if his vitality continued to advance? They would definitely put in great effort to nurture this student and not let him be wasted like he was being treated now. Strong emotions of talent appreciation rose in their hearts. He's using the Tai Chi method of returning the opponent's force onto themselves. Smart choice, the principal spoke up with great admiration. But what's the use of doing that? That's right. This silicon giant's constitution is different from humans. It won't be defeated so easily. This method of battling would only be a form of restriction. It won't be able to deal any intrinsic harm to the silicon giant at all. Everyone shook their heads. In fact, they had brought up a crucial point. Feng Lin had also noticed this. Although he appeared to be having the advantage, he didn't seem to be able to deal any lethal damage to the giant. The silicon giant's body was far too hard, comparable to alloys both inside and out. Physical attacks were almost useless to it. Maybe the only way to kill it would be to use the energy impacts for an extended period of time and slowly wear it down. Hoo. Feng Lin kept panting, feeling as if his stamina was going to be depleted soon. Although he was using martial arts to divert the opponent's force, it was still exhausting. Things mustn't be allowed to carry on like this. The other party was a silicon-based life form and had a strong and sturdy physique. If the battle dragged out, there wouldn't be any benefits for him. He must try to think of a way to restrain his opponent and clinch victory as soon as possible. Feng Lin kept running ideas through his mind. That's it. As Feng Lin observed the silicon giant's heavy body that seemed as if it was carved from rocks, his eyes suddenly lit up. Vajra subduing tiger. Feng Lin arched his body, assuming a tiger subduing stance. He suddenly leaped up and kicked out toward the opponent's heart from the air. Seeking death. The silicon giant bellowed furiously, stomping its leg heavily on the ground and then kicking out with its left leg. However, it hadn't expected that Feng Lin did a spin in the air and then quickly plunged down. He swept out with one leg and kicked fiercely onto its left knee from the side. Having missed its kick just to suffer from a heavy blow, the silicon giant lost its balance. Its massive body suddenly collapsed abruptly, causing a great stir. Its massive body that weighed 5 tons pressed down heavily on its weak left leg that was distorted in an opposite direction. A crisp kacha sound rang out. It sat down awkwardly on its left leg, crushing it. The silicon giant immediately cried out in heart-wrenching pain. Its blood gushed out like spring water, tainting the ground with its blue-black color. This was a good chance. It hadn't been easy for Feng Lin to grasp this chance. How could he possibly let it slip by? He charged up and grabbed onto the silicon giant's broken leg, pulling at it with all of his might. His green veins popped up as if he was tugging at a small mountain while concentrating all of his strength on it. The giant bellowed with pain and lashed out its hands and foot. Feng Lin, making use of his small and nimble body, kept on dodging. In the end, with a furious bellow, Feng Lin used up all of his strength to pull off the silicon giant's broken leg that was as thick as a stone pillar. Then, raising it high up in the sky, he used the broken leg as a hammer and kept smashing it down fiercely toward the giant's head. There was nothing on this planet that was tougher than the silicon giant, except itself. This broken leg was like a ready-made weapon. Dong dong dong. Deep stifled sounds rang out like that of the sound of drums, causing one's heart to palpitate. Feng Lin appeared as if he had gone crazy, raising that leg and kept smashing it down the silicon giant's head. The ground was crushed as banging sounds rang out. No matter how tough the giant's skull was, how could it possibly be able to withstand the repeated smashings? Kakaka cracking sounds rang out. The silicon giant's skull shattered, and blood as well as murky brain plasma splattered all over, drenching Feng Lin. Feng Lin stood in a pool of blood. He was like the Yiksha amidst a sea of blood, wearing a savage expression while exuding a ferocious and bloodthirsty aura, making others shrink from fear. In a battle to the bitter end, Feng Lin didn't hold back at all and smashed the silicon giant to oblivion. Its massive body scattered into energy and started to dissipate. The surrounding environment also started to break down. It was only then did Feng Lin heave a sigh of relief, falling limp to the ground, unable to get up to his feet again. He didn't have a single ounce of strength left in him. When the teachers saw this scene, they exchanged a glance of great astonishment. They had never thought well of Feng Lin from the beginning, but also hadn't expected to be given a slap in the face from the outcome. Right now, this kid had successfully cleared the 20th level. This was awkward. To think that he really did it. Unbelievable kid. He actually found a second method to defeat the silicon giant. The teachers were all very shocked. The 17th class female head teacher wore an exhilarated expression as if she had been avenged. This isn't something simple. In fact, only Feng Lin is able to do something like returning the opponent's force onto themselves. It requires extremely high battle instincts and martial arts mastery. Most importantly, it also requires a harsh mindset, to be vicious to the enemy and to be even more vicious toward yourself. The principal said this as he watched Feng Lin's performance in great marvel. Everyone nodded, completely convinced by the principal's comments. They thought of Feng Lin's earlier crazy actions that were just simply self-torture. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to do something like this. Genetic potential plus 46%. This was the end. After defeating the silicon giant, Feng Lin fell down weakly to the ground, smiling bitterly. He really had no more strength left in him. Having conquered the 20th level, he obtained an unprecedented huge amount of potential points, reaching the total amount of 98%. He was just a little bit short from obtaining a genetic point. He was only 2% short. However, a little short was still short. Without new genetic points to recover his stamina, he was unable to hold on anymore. Sensing that Feng Lin had lost his battle prowess, the illusory martial pagoda closed down slowly and the surroundings returned to the dark and empty scene. He was unwilling to accept this. Feng Lin opened his eyes and looked up. It was as if he was trying to see what was there one level higher. At this moment, a robotic voice rang out in the illusory martial pagoda. We'll be announcing the final results now. First place, Duan Yunlu, 392 points. Second place, Jess Clot, 371 points. Third place, Feng Lin, 368 points. Feng Lin's name was placed third. Chapter 24, Final Result. Once the final result was shown, an uproar happened in the monitoring room. He actually got the third place. The illusory martial pagoda would rank the participants according to their achievements. It was based on the number of levels they had passed, the time they had taken, as well as the difficulty factor. There was no way for anyone to cheat. This also meant that Feng Lin depended completely on himself and displayed genuine talent. A brat with only 1.5 vitality stats actually reached the top 3 of the school. Who would dare to believe this? Who would believe this? But the reality was before their eyes. It was impossible for the results to be wrong, they could only believe in it. For this batch of graduating students, there were a total of 50 classes in the Earth High School. Yet, a brat like Feng Lin actually managed to get to the top 3. Other than Duan Yunlu and Jess Clot, all other students were suppressed beneath him. Even Zhuang Ziming, Fong Yun, and the rest which the headmaster had evaluated, all of them failed to make it to the top 3. Dark horse, Feng Lin was an absolute dark horse. Congratulations to you for producing a genius in your class. Seems like your guidance isn't bad. The headmaster spoke to the female head teacher. The other head teachers had unsightly looks on their faces. When they thought of their earlier evaluations of Feng Lin, they couldn't help but feel a burning sensation on their faces. Thank you, headmaster. It's all due to headmaster's guidance and Feng Lin's own hard work, the female head teacher humbly replied, not coveting for credit at all. Although she spoke like this, she couldn't hide the smile on her face. No matter what, her class did produce a true genius. She would still be credited regardless, and nobody could take that away from her. Even if she always had a strict expression, right now, her smile was like the blossoming of a flower. She had completely forgotten her past disregard for Feng Lin. The other head teachers still had looks of contempt, yet they were silently admiring how lucky the female head teacher of the 17th class was. They felt extremely complicated in their hearts. However, the words spoken by the headmaster next made her unable to smile and caused the other head teachers to laugh joyfully. Feng Lin might have a very high combat prowess, but his vitality stats is simply too low, not even at 2. Vitality stats are fundamental for cultivation. Next, none of you is allowed to disturb him. We will just monitor his future development and see if he is a dragon or nothing but a worm. The headmaster made a decision and slammed his palm down on his desk. He then continued, if his vitality stats can break through to 2.0, he will immediately become a college exam candidate, and we will nurture him heavily. Headmaster is brilliant. A vitality stats of 1.5 is simply too low. Just depending on his martial arts, he can at most amount to being an ordinary man. Increasing vitality stats are the true crux of becoming a cultivator. If one doesn't become a cultivator, their life would only be a waste. Without enough vitality, what's the use of having a high combat prowess? Those people nodded respectively, each having the look of thinking for the bigger picture plastered on their faces. Yet, all of them sighed with relief in their hearts. This meant that temporarily, the geniuses from their classes wouldn't be threatened by Feng Lin. The female head teacher was even more angered when she saw this. Her colleagues were all clearly gloating, tossing stones when she was down. But she had no solution to this since the headmaster had already spoken. It was true that vitality was fundamental. If one didn't become a cultivator, their lives could be considered to be hopeless and wasted. No matter how high your talent and how strong your combat prowess was, everything would still be like flowers in the mirror, the moon reflected on the surface of the water. What made her angered was that Feng Lin's performance had been so outstanding, yet the headmaster still chose to do this. This clearly meant that he had no confidence towards Feng Lin and wasn't optimistic about his potential. The headmaster obviously knew that his decision was a little unfair to Feng Lin. He said to the female head teacher, Feng Lin's performance is truly incredible. Don't worry, it doesn't mean that I'm not regarding him highly. It's just that his past achievement records are too weak. Now, it's possible that this burst in potential is only temporarily, and it isn't clear if he has enough value to be nurtured yet. We have no idea if this is actually a sudden outburst of his potential or did he receive some heavenly encounters, resulting in this scenario. Hence, I would like more time to monitor him. If he can continue to soar higher, he will definitely become someone that our school will nurture heavily. Hence, if he needs anything for his cultivation in the future, you can try your best to fulfill it. The other head teachers were shocked. They didn't expect the headmaster to actually give Feng Lin such preferential treatment. This was simply unprecedented. After hearing the headmaster's explanation, the female head teacher could only accept it. The cultivation building was dark and silent. After a long time, a voice rang out, "Only the third place?" Feng Lin lay on the ground, gasping for breath. He struggled to incline his head and look at the score, as a look of contemplation appeared on his face. He was very clear on the standard of the trials in the illusory martial pagoda. If it were based on the number of levels cleared, he's definitely the one with the most. However, this was because he had to start from the first level. This meant that the grade of his opponents might not be as high as compared to the other participants. Hence, the points he obtained also wouldn't be too high. In the end, he lost to second place by 3 points and was ranked third. At this moment, as the illusory martial pagoda disappeared, the AI of this place generated a 3-dimension image before Feng Lin, with data and numbers on it. Name, Feng Lin. Identity, Senior Year 3 student of the Earth High School. Number of levels passed, 20. Age, 17. Vitality stats, 1.5. Gene, body strengthening type. Strong point, extremely high combat prowess, able to jump levels to battle. Weakness, genetic potential isn't fully developed, lacking in nutrients, life force overdraft discovered. This was clearly a human body's attribute diagram that was similar to his skill, the genetic equation. But there were some differences. This was the data which the illusory martial pagoda projected after scanning him. The vitality stats listed here was still 1.5. It didn't discover that Feng Lin's current vitality stats had already broken through to 1.9. Also, this scanner seemed to have no way to scan one's gene attributes. It was far inferior to the genetic equation in this aspect. Warning, warning. Student Feng Lin's genetic potential isn't fully developed. The required amount of nutrients in the body is far too deficient, and there's excessive overdraft of life potential. Please hurry and replenish your nutrients. The warning voice of the AI rang out in Feng Lin's ears. His genetic potential wasn't fully developed? What did this mean? Clearly, his 2 genes had been strengthened to their limits and had surpassed all his predecessors, and yet the AI said that his genetic potential wasn't fully developed? Although Feng Lin was puzzled, he didn't feel that the AI had made a mistake. One must know that the AI of the illusory martial pagoda was created from the collection of experiences of the data gathered by the countless powerful cultivators of humanity. Its understanding of the martial path and the human body would result in its scan being 99.999999999% accurate, infinitesimally close to 100%. There must be some other reason for this. The AI was intelligent, and you could converse with it just like with a normal human being. Hence, Feng Lin attempted to talk to it. "Hi, hope you are doing fine. Student Feng Lin, the AI of the illusory martial path is happy to be of service to you." A female robotic voice rang out. "I wish to ask a question. What do you mean by my life force overdraft, and that my genetic potential has yet to be fully developed?" Feng Lin asked. The robotic voice was extremely cold, and it said something that gave Feng Lin the chills. The AI scanner is unable to fully analyze the miraculous changes to your body. The cells in your entire body are now extremely active, like they are stimulated by something. However, because of the lack of sufficient nutrients, the cells might have expanded, but they are in a state of long-term starvation. Recently, your vitality stats surged up so quickly due to the fact that your cells are devouring your life potential. If you do not take in enough nutrients to sustain the cell growth process, your muscles will wither as this goes on and you will die from your life potential being overly consumed. Chapter 25, Life Force Overdraft. What? My life potential is being consumed? Feng Lin was extremely shocked. The strengthening of his cells led to his increase in vitality. He only felt a sense of wellness he had never felt before. But right now, the AI was telling him that his life force was overdraft, leading to his life potential being consumed by his growing cells. How could he accept this? He hurriedly asked, "How should I resolve this?" Other than consuming a great number of nutrients, there are no other methods. The AI replied. "How much nutrients do I need exactly?" Feng Lin questioned closely. Unable to determine the amount needed, "As much as possible," replied the AI. He was unable to gain any more answers from the AI. Feng Lin pondered before he asked again, "In that case, if a gene's potential isn't fully developed, is there a direct relation with the lack of nutrients?" That's right. According to mythological gene theory, genes control the structure of life and need nutrients to transform and evolve. Now that you are so strong, you must have exhausted the accumulated nutrients in your body. According to my observation and the results of the earlier scan, I discovered that your genes were strengthened, but you are lacking enough nutrients to cause your body to transform. Hence, if you continue to cultivate in this manner, your body will soon be completely depleted of nutrients. You might be crippled and your life force damaged. This will also limit the growth of your vitality stats. By right, given how strong your genes are, your vitality stats shouldn't be merely at 1.5, the AI replied. How much should it be exactly? Feng Lin's heart stirred. How could he not be cautious? This involved a crucial point of whether he would grow stronger or not. At the very least, 4.0, the AI answered. What? Feng Lin was shocked. Right now, his current vitality stats was only 1.9, yet the AI said that his vitality stats should at least be 4.0. How can there be such a large disparity? This was simply illogical. However, the AI was not a living thing. It wouldn't be possible for it to joke around with you. Why is this so? Feng Lin asked. The AI answered, genetics are the cores of life. They control the origin of life. Once a gene is awakened, it would control the hormones and nutrients in the body to create new cells to strengthen your organs. This is the reason why strengthening your awakened genes would lead to an increase in your vitality stats. But of course, the prerequisite was that you must have enough nutrients to sustain the growth of your cells. For example, if a gene is a building, nutrients would be the bricks. Without enough material, it's impossible for the construction of the building to be completed. At the same time, without enough nutrients, no matter how strong your gene is, your vitality stats wouldn't be able to increase either. According to the conjectures of genetic scholars, adding one genetic point to a basic gene would at the very least boost your vitality stats by 0.1. However, this was under the situation that the host is lacking sufficient nutrients. Feng Lin's heart trembled. Wasn't he in this situation now? He hurriedly asked, "What if there are sufficient nutrients?" The AI gave him a reply that shocked him. In that case, the boost to your vitality stats would be infinitesimally close to 1.0. If there were sufficient nutrients, your vitality stats would increase even further. It's actually 1. Feng Lin was truly shocked. It was about 10 times his current rate. He discovered that his earlier thinking was too simple. Genetic development wasn't so simple. Not only must he continue to strengthen his awakened genes, but he also had to provide his body with sufficient nutrients to allow the genes to maximize their growth potential. Every time he used a genetic point to strengthen one of his genes, he only had an increase of 0.1 to his vitality stats. The other students might have a much higher increase rate. Although the answer of 1.0 was merely a theoretical value, as long as there were enough nutrients, the increase rate shouldn't be too far from it. Also, even if the other students had an increase rate of 0.5 when they strengthened one of their awakened genes, that would still be 5 times more than him. He instantly felt extremely depressed. Those people that were proclaimed as geniuses in the respective classes who had also participated in the illusory martial pagoda, it was impossible for them to have strengthened their genes more times compared to him. But why were their vitality stats higher? The problem was still ultimately the lack of nutrients. This was the negative point of having no one to guide you. If it wasn't for the warning by the AI, he would still be ignorant of this. After knowing this fact, it could be said that he hadn't come to the illusory martial pagoda in vain. However, in order to consume nutritious stuff, he would need interstellar coins. Things would be pretty troublesome. Feng Lin was very clear about what sort of background he was from. There was truly no way for his family to provide him with nutritious food. They were all consuming the lowest grade nutrient fluids. Such low-grade nutrient fluids might be able to fill one's stomach, but the nutrient content in them was simply too low. Thus, it was impossible for his body, or in this case his gene, to grow. If he wished to continue cultivating, he had to eat better food. As an example, maybe consuming mid-grade nutrient medicine or high-grade nutrient fluids? No, these were still far from sufficient. He needed more high-level tonics such as super protein, flesh from cosmic beasts, energy potion, etc. However, all of this cost money. He simply needed more interstellar coins. Feng Lin soon came to realize that his birth in a poor background like the Feng clan had severely restricted his development. However, he wasn't complaining. While the world spins in orbit, a superior man makes relentless endeavors for advancement. The path of cultivation was incomparably long. It was impossible to walk far on it if one kept wanting to depend on others. One could only depend on oneself. So, he should think of more solutions to earn money next. If he didn't have enough nutrients and continued to strengthen his genes without giving a damn, it would mean that he was draining the pond to get the fish. He would be risking his life and risking his cultivation. After being clear about this point, Feng Lin naturally wouldn't make such a stupid choice. He silently determined that before he consumed enough nutrients, he wouldn't strengthen his genes rashly. After a while, Feng Lin's physical strength gradually recovered to a certain point. He then stood up exhausted as he walked out of the cultivation building. At this moment, the other students also exited respectively. All of them had the looks of exhaustion on their faces, as though they had just experienced a tough war. Those head teachers were dispatching bottles and bottles of nutrient medicine to them. Feng Lin glanced closely at the bottles and discovered that they were the newest batch of nutrient medicine named as the Green God Type 3 nutrient medicine. It was said that this was made from the distillation of many valuable plants in the universe and had many different types of nutrients mixed within. Just a single bottle would cost above 1,000 interstellar coins and was worth roughly about 10 days of nutrients intake for a human. Take this. The female head teacher tossed a bottle of nutrient medicine over. Teacher, this Feng Lin caught it and hesitated. This was too valuable. The illusory martial pagoda exhausts too much strength. This is the compensation given by the school to all the participating students, allowing you guys to recover faster. Stop being so wishy-washy, just take it since we are giving it out, the female head teacher spoke. Feng Lin felt somewhat strange with regards to the female head teacher's change in attitude. However, he naturally wouldn't miss out on such a good opportunity. Feng Lin wasn't someone pretentious. He received it and said, "Thank you, teacher." After speaking, he turned and departed, not noticing the cold gazes directed at his back. After he left, he started heading in the direction of his home. Staring the bottle in his hand, Feng Lin felt more and more thirsty. He panicked and felt that he was so hungry that he could eat a cow. That alluring scent was nothing short of torture. After that, he couldn't resist any longer and opened the bottle cap and drank everything in one gulp. Once the nutrient fluids entered his stomach, he instantly felt itchy all over, as warm currents circulated around his body. An expression of satisfaction appeared on Feng Lin's face, but the feeling of hunger kept surging up. He still wanted to drink more. One had to know that a bottle of nutrient fluids contained nutrients enough for an ordinary person to last for 10 days. However, other than feeling a little change to his body, Feng didn't feel any difference in comparison to not drinking it. From this, one could see how severely depleted of nutrients he was. His sole objective now should be to make money to allow him to consume enough nutrients. Feng felt a sense of urgency. Hold it right there. Just as he exited the school gate, a group of people suddenly appeared before him. The person in the lead was tall and handsome, however, the tyrannical expression on his face spoiled his handsome looks somewhat. It was none other than the top-ranked student in Feng class, Zhao Kai. Chapter 26, Demanding the Secret. This group of students then spread out, surrounding Feng. They had cold smiles on their faces as they surveyed Feng. It was clear that they came with unkind intentions. Zhao Kai, what do you want? Feng glanced at Zhao Kai, who was in the lead. His tone was calm, like he wasn't in this situation at all. Zhao Kai. Is this the new genius Feng from your 17th class? A burst of cold-sounding laughter rang out. Zhao Kai, who was one of the top geniuses of the 17th class, instantly had an obsequious expression on his face. He glanced respectfully at a tall Caucasian youth as he spoke. He is the one, young Master Clot. This youth from the white race was 2 meters tall. His facial features were striking with a towering eagle-like nose. The aura he exuded felt extremely sinister. His figure was lanky and muscular, like a leopard in human form. His vitality stats were clearly extraordinary. The 10 over students here, who were his lackeys, all had vitality stats of at least 1.0. These people were actually willing to become the lackeys of this Caucasian youth. It seemed like they must have obtained some benefits from this young Master Clot. Feng knew this man. In the interstellar era, the various human races of Earth had long crossed the limits of their respective regions, traversing large distances and had procreated with each other, giving birth to many mixed blood. Although the Huaxia city Feng was in was the territory of the Republic of China of ancient Earth era, other than people of the yellow race, there were quite a few from the black race and white race as well, although they were a minority. As for this Jess Clot, he was precisely a famous Caucasian genius from the white race. He was very powerful and extremely famous. It was said that he was a young master from a financial group in the Huaxia city, and his clan's net worth was above 20 billion interstellar coins. With such a good background, his clan naturally could provide good quality resources which allowed Jess Clot to have a startling vitality stats, reaching over 2.5. This time, Feng result in the illusory martial pagoda was actually only 3 points lower than his. From this, he could sense that Feng was a formidable opponent. Feng didn't know why this person wanted to make trouble for him, but even so, he would treat this person politely. But clearly, the other party didn't think like him. Clot glanced at Feng and had a scornful expression on his face. At this moment, Zhao Kai already walked over. He forcefully asked Feng, "What are you still in a daze for? Young Master Clot is here. Why are you not coming over to pay your respects? We are all schoolmates." Feng almost burst into laughter as he shook his head. This is already the interstellar era, but you are still using this move from the ancient times? Are you guys from a gang? You even want me to pay respect? When did the school have such a rule? You dare to speak to young Master Clot this way? The ignorant are fearless, you are courting death. How brazen. Young Master Clot, do you want us to beat him up and teach him a lesson first? Those lackeys crowded over, surrounding him, and was looking at him like how tigers look at their prey. It was clear this wasn't the first time they were doing such a thing. Feng didn't seem to be bothered. he took up a stance and was prepared to enter his combat mode at any moment. Brat, you are truly gutsy. Clot waved his hand, telling his lackeys to open a path for him. He walked closer, peering down at Feng Lin. If you thought you could do whatever you want just because of a one-time dazzling performance, you are gravely mistaken. The only true geniuses of the school are me and Duan Yunlu. There's no place for you. Oh. Do you think you are God? Everything will be according to what you say? Staring at the disdainful look on Jess Clot's face, Feng Lin also couldn't be bothered to waste words with such an arrogant person. This was simply wasting his own time. He was already surrounded by his enemies. If this was the past him, he would definitely feel immense pressure in his heart. But now, with strength comes confidence. He didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "Why are you looking for me? Just tell me what you want. Stop acting so wishy-washy if you are a man." Clot's eyes narrowed. Every time he spoke to people, those he was speaking to would always be extremely respectful to him. Who would have thought that this Feng Lin didn't want to give him face at all? He was about to blow his top, but when he thought about his purpose, he managed to calm himself down and suppress the anger he felt. "I'll temporarily endure your words. After I get what I want, I'll show you who's the boss. Today, I'm looking for you because I need you to do me a favor." Clot calmly spoke. He then continued, "Your current explosive improvement led to your domineering performance. You must have encountered some heavenly good fortune, right? If you tell me the secret, I'll give you 10,000 interstellar coins. You little country bumpkin, I bet you've never seen such a large fortune like 10,000 interstellar coins before, right? What? You want me to give you the secret of how I grew stronger?" A strange look appeared on Feng Lin's face. These people were actually forcing him to tell them his secret of growing stronger? Brains are good stuff. I can only hope that other people have brains too. Undoubtedly, Feng Lin was very clear about how powerful the genetic equation was. Now, this man actually wanted him to hand it over? Was this person crazy or what? This involved the crux of Feng Lin becoming stronger. When one's cultivation base grew stronger, what else could he not achieve? Only a fool would trade with this guy. In any case, it was impossible to trade away the genetic equation. It was an innate ability that uniquely belonged to him. Even if he could, he would never do so. 10,000 interstellar coins? Are you treating me like a beggar? Let alone 10,000. Even if it was 1,000,000, 10,000,000, or 1,000,000,000, he would never trade it away. He. Feng Lin started laughing, feeling like this man before him had gone crazy. "What are you laughing about?" Clot's eyelids were twitching, feeling like he was being mocked. His expression instantly turned sinister. He. Feng Lin didn't answer and continued to laugh. A clear mocking look could be seen in his eyes. Other than laughing at Clot's stupidity, there was truly nothing more to say to him. "What are you laughing at?" Clot was angered. Seeing that Feng Lin wasn't going to tell him the secret, the flames of anger in his heart burned even fiercer. Since young, he lived like a prince, and as the number 2 genius in this school, no one had ever viewed him with contempt before. This time in the illusory martial pagoda, he was suppressed once more by Duan Yunlu. It seemed like no matter how hard he worked, it was impossible for him to surpass the other party. What made him even more humiliated was that an unknown brat got the 3rd place, and the point difference between them was only 3 points apart. This was simply too face-smacking. It was only after Zhao Kai looked for him and told him everything did he realize that this was a perfect opportunity. Before this unknown brat only had a vitality stats of 0.4. Now, for some reason, his vitality suddenly shot up explosively, reaching 1.5. It was clear that he must have met with some heavenly encounters. Such good fortune would be a waste on this person. Only him, Clot, was qualified to enjoy the good fortune. He might very well defeat Duan Yunlu in a single move and become the #1 genius in the school instantly if he could gain the good fortune from Fenglin. In order to please him, Zhao Kai immediately made a solemn vow saying that he would force Fenglin to hand over the secret he had obtained to him. Clot's heart was already completely tempted by greed. But now, seeing that this brat refused to comply, Clot was incomparably enraged as he glared at Zhao Kai. This is completely different from how you say the situation would go. Take care of matters arising from your own class. His tone was ice-cold. It was like if Zhao Kai couldn't settle this, he would deal with Zhao Kai. Zhao Kai's expression stiffened. He took a step forward and roared, "Fenglin, quickly hand over your secret if you know what's good for you. Young Master Clot won't be so polite any longer. This is for your own good, and in any case, it's a waste for such a secret to remain with you. In the future, if you follow young Master Clot, you would have endless benefits. If you want to be an idiot, you can go ahead. Are you treating me like a fool as well?" Fenglin didn't mask the disdain on his face. "If you want to be a dog, don't drag me into this as well." Zhao Kai trembled in rage. As one of the genius in the 17th class, he had always been widely respected. Now that he was being called a dog, how could he tolerate this? Seeing that Zhao Kai was unable to take down Fenglin, Clot had also lost his patience. "Quickly. Fenglin, since you want to court death, you can't blame me for not showing mercy even if you are one of my classmates." Zhao Kai's expression turned completely cold. He was looking at Fenglin like how he was looking at a dead man. Blazing meteor fist. His fists burned with flames and attacked with no hesitation. Both his fists punched out rapidly and balls of flames shot over as dense as rain, causing mini explosions to ring out in the air. The attacks instantly enveloped Fenglin within. Chapter 27, Classes Number 1. The flames blazed fiercely as dense as rain, and the attack had the speed of shooting stars. Fenglin stood his ground unmovingly. It was as though he was too frightened by the attack and couldn't move. The flames instantly enveloped Fenglin as his silhouette completely vanished within. "Haha, that brat is going to be burned to death." As expected of the #1 character beneath young Master Clot. Zhao Kai's blazing meteor fist is as ferocious as before. This brat talks a tough game, who would have thought that he would be so weak? These lackeys all started cheering like they wanted nothing more but to watch the skies burn. Clot stared at this scene as he furrowed his brows. This brat suddenly rose up and obtained the 3rd place ranking in the illusory martial pagoda. Was his strength really so weak? But how can he obtain such a good result if he's so weak? Could it be that the AI had made a mistake? Zhao Kai, take note. Don't burn him to death. He frowned and reminded him. Young Master Clot, don't worry. I know what to do. The intensity of these flames can at most char his skin. There's no need to worry about permanent scarring given the medical technology we have today. If we don't scare him a little, he wouldn't be obedient. Zhao Kai laughed malevolently. Clot nodded after he heard that. This made sense to him. In any case, he was rich. As long as Fenglin didn't die from the burns, he would be able to heal him. It was good to let this brat suffer a bit, or he wouldn't know the immensity of heavens and earth. You want me to submit? Your fist is so tiny, what a beautiful fantasy. A burst of cold laughter suddenly rang out. What? Everyone exclaimed in shock. Rumble. An explosion occurred within the flames. Fenglin walked out slowly, he was completely uninjured. There were no traces of burns on his skin at all. How can this be? You're actually completely fine? Zhao Kai was stunned. He had unleashed his strongest attack, yet it didn't even injure this brat? How could he accept this? You speak too much nonsense. Feng Lin shook his head. Since the other party had already acted, why did he still need to be polite? It was impolite not to reciprocate. What a coincidence. He had just finished consuming the green god type 3 nutrient medicine, and he was extremely energetic with nowhere to vent. He might as well use this chance to digest the nutrients. Feng Lin moved according to the 8 trigrams stance, causing afterimages to appear after him. At the same time, his fists blasted out in a torrential rush. Zhao Kai rushed forward as he executed a technique. Fire burns the wilderness. His entire body was immolated in fire, becoming a burning man. If his opponent was someone ordinary, then they would definitely tremble and feel fear. However, Feng Lin wasn't an ordinary person. The exterior of his skin shone with a luster, isolating that fearsome heat away from him. His fists were like bolts of lightning, not retreating at all, choosing to clash head-on with Zhao Kai. How is this possible? At the instant their fists collided, Zhao Kai's expression drastically changed. He felt as though he had slammed his fist into a stone pillar and felt extreme pain from the impact. AI. The flames produced were completely extinguished by the wind generated from Feng Lin's punches. An immense force blasted Zhao Kai backward, pushing him back at least 3 meters away. Within a single move, the stronger one was revealed. Too weak. Feng Lin shook his head. He didn't show mercy and continued pressing forward. 8 Extremes Fist. Tai Chi is kept hidden for 10 years, 8 extremes can kill within a year. Feng Lin abruptly unleashed the ancient martial arts from the earth that was famed for being the most ferocious and tyrannical. His fists and legs were like terrifying weapons. Not only that, his elbows, his knees, his head. Every part of his body was a weapon, and his attack was like the relentless tide, capable of crushing everything. Zhao Kai suffered attacks after attacks and had no way to stop the chain of combos. His body trembled as he fell back. The flames he was so proud of couldn't even damage Feng Lin's stone-like skin. All of his flames were easily extinguished. What? Zhao Kai is actually suppressed? I thought the vitality stats of this brat is only 1.5. How can he be so domineering? Unbelievable. A series of exclamations of shock could be heard from the people around. Not only was Zhao Kai shocked, even Jess Clot and his other lackeys felt that this was too unbelievable. Zhao Kai wasn't a weak chicken. His vitality stats were at 2.2, and he had awakened both the flame gene and metal gene. Once he displayed his abilities, his strength was impressive, and he did have solid capabilities. Zhao Kai could be considered an expert in the school. His blazing meteor fist was extremely famous. Each of his attacks was as tough as metal, as fiery as fire. Even someone with a vitality of 2.0 wouldn't be able to stop him, let alone someone with a vitality of 1.5. Yet now, he was actually being suppressed. This was simply unbelievable. Go to hell. Zhao Kai missed his attack once again, yet his opponent's attack hit him. Unbearable pain could be seen on his face. Killing intent gushed forth from him as he began to unleash his full power, preparing to kill Feng Lin. Although he couldn't be considered anyone remarkable in the perspective of the entire school, he had always been the number 1 in the 17th class. Nobody could shake his position. However, everything changed after the illusory Martial Pagoda's trial. This brat Feng Lin actually explosively burst forth with his potential, becoming the 3rd-ranked student. Not only did he suppress the vast majority of the school's geniuses under him, but he left them far behind in the dust. How could he endure this? He could even sense that the female head teacher's attitude had changed. If this continued on, his position would surely be affected. The number one in the 17th class would be this brat, instead of him. How could he allow someone like Feng Lin to climb on top of his head? Hence, he reported the information about Feng Lin to young Master Clot, wanting to borrow Clot's strength to force Feng Lin to give up his secret. However, he was actually the one being suppressed instead. You should die. Zhao Kai howled in anger as his features contorted. He suddenly changed his stance. Golden bell iron cloth. He stood erect as a violent aura gushed forth. Zhao Kai's entire person turned a brown-blackish color, like a man made from rusted metal. Metal gene. Feng Lin mused. This gene allows the user to control metal. This was the reason why Zhao Kai was so arrogant, feeling that no one in his class could threaten his position as he boasted about his strength. This move, the Golden Bell Iron Cloth, was something Feng Lin had heard before. This technique required the metal gene before it can be utilized. With it, one could control the metallic ions in their body, gathering them and provide a layer of incomparably tough metallic shell that covered one's body. Vedra carries the cauldron. Feng Lin wasn't willing to back down. He changed his technique to the Vedra subduing devil fist and clashed head-on with Zhao Kai. Bang, bang, bang. Their fists collided, creating a thunderous noise akin to when a rock hits metal. One had the metal gene, and the other had the stone-birth gene. The two different types of body-strengthening genes collided, creating a bloody scene that caused the hearts of everyone to pound as they looked at it. Feng Lin advanced valiantly, moving forward step by step. Zhao Kai repeatedly retreated. Actually, both the flame gene and metal gene were considered high-grade genes among basic genes. Their grades were far above the stone-birth gene. However, during the battle earlier, the flames produced had been extinguished, and the Golden Bell Iron Cloth technique from the metal gene had crumbled apart. To sum it up, Zhao Kai was completely suppressed. As to why such a situation occurred, there were no other reasons. Zhao Kai was simply too weak. Just a high vitality stat was useless. Vitality stats could be boosted by consuming large amounts of nutrients. But because Zhao Kai hadn't strengthened his genes properly, he was extremely weak. Mighty Vedra palm. Feng Lin's palm blasted out, generating a fiery wind. As it slammed into Zhao Kai, it sent Zhao Kai flying through the air. Too weak. Although Feng Lin was the victor and had become the number one in the 17th class, he didn't feel any satisfaction after defeating such a weak opponent. Feng Lin wished to continue fighting. Shaking his head, he glanced at the rest of the lackeys as he coldly spoke, "Come at me together." Arrogant. Do you really think that after you defeat Zhao Kai, you're invincible? Courting death. These lackeys had always acted like a tyrant in school. When had they ever been disregarded like this before? All of them were filled with rage. You guys speak too much crap. Feng Lin couldn't stand their blabbering. He actually took the initiative to rush them, fighting all of them alone. Those who come have no kind intentions, those with kind intentions wouldn't come. These people all emitted sinister auras. Clearly, they didn't intend to spare him. Since that was the case, he would chop through them like weeds. Feng Lin didn't have the patience to waste time with them. For a battle between cultivators, strength was still everything. No matter how good you are at talking, it wouldn't injure anyone at all. Feng Lin rushed forth, emanating a domineering might, wanting to sweep through this bunch of people, completely crushing them. Chapter 28, Crushing Everything. Vedra Smash. His fists were like iron poles blasting downward. These lackeys only knew how to shoot their mouths off from a distance. They didn't dare to rush forward despite after a long time. However, Feng Lin was already impatient. He moved with the speed of lightning, rushing into the crowd as his fists that were like iron poles swept out in all directions. His fists were fast, accurate, and ruthless. The group of people couldn't dodge in time. They only saw a black shadow flashing before their eyes, and they were knocked down onto the ground the next instant. Actually daring to act against us by himself, truly courting death. Arrogant. Does he think that he is the #1 ranker of our school, Duan Yulu? He's overestimating himself. Brothers, let's go and crush him together. These people were all followers of the #2 genius in the school, young Master Clot. They had always been acting tyrannically, and nobody dared to antagonize them. Now, seeing how domineering Feng Lin was, preparing to fight alone against all of them, this was simply not having them in his eyes. Hence, the flames of their anger burned. Didn't I say it before? You guys speak too much crap. Feng Lin helplessly shook his head. He showed no mercy and was like a ferocious tiger leaving its mountain as he lunged into the midst of the crowd. Hong Fist, 8 Extremes Fist, Xingyi Fist. All sorts of ancient martial arts he had learned from the illusory martial pagoda were displayed one by one. Although these martial arts couldn't put the power of his genes into play, they were all extremely deep techniques that allowed one to unleash strength far beyond an ordinary man. With it complementing Feng Lin's current strength and speed, he was simply unstoppable. Those people only saw a bunch of afterimages surrounding them. They didn't know what to do. Yes, this group of people was completely surrounded. This was somewhat contradictory, but as seen in reality. These lackeys couldn't even track Feng Lin's movements. They were slammed by his fist and toppled over to the ground. Only Zhao Kai was barely holding on. His fist had reached a power level of 1.2 ton, and his moves were savage. As Feng Lin's vitality stats increased, his fist strength naturally increased too. But there was still a disparity between that and his vitality stats. However, after experiencing the journey into the illusory martial pagoda, he was no longer the newbie in combat from before. He had gained valuable battle experience, and in this situation, he chose not to fight head-on with Zhao Kai. The ancient martial arts he had learned were used one after another interchangeably with overflowing flexibility. There was a natural sense of rhythm with it. 8 Extremes Fist. Feng Lin shifted using the 8 trigram stance, slowly moving closer to Zhao Kai. Bang bang bang. The wind generated from his palm attacks broke the air as he closely chased after Zhao Kai. Every move Feng Lin made was a killing one. Quick, quicker, even quicker. He struck out with his palms, his fists, and his elbows. For the lower half of his body, he stomped, he kicked, he swept. In an instant, he neared Zhao Kai. He was now like a human-shaped beast and contained such explosive strength that one's bone and tendons would be torn apart at the slightest contact with him. Zhao Kai instantly felt the countless attacks. He stood his ground and tried to defend. But soon after, a scream rang out as his body was flung through the air. Crack, crack. Zhao Kai was slammed onto the ground. His bones cracked as his eyes rolled over, fainting into unconsciousness. A legendary character in the school with vitality stats at 2.2, was actually so heavily injured by Feng Lin and had fainted. If this was in the past, Feng Lin would definitely not be a match for Zhao Kai. But after the illusory martial pagoda trial, Feng Lin had been completely reborn and transformed. Not only were his genes strengthened again, but his vitality stats had also risen by a total of 0.4. What was even more important was that after so many rounds of battle, he had learned many different types of ancient martial arts to mitigate his weakness of not being proficient in combat. The martial arts he had learned could even unleash the energy of his genes. His genetic energy that had broken past the limits, once it was unleashed, the power was unimaginable. Feng Lin could feel that as his monkey gene and stone-birth gene were strengthened to the peak. Although there weren't many visible changes to his external body, his internal body was as though it had been reforged anew. He had stone-like skin, iron bones, and startling speed, granting him immense combat potential. If the attacks launched at him didn't have enough power, Feng Lin could simply stand there and allow the others to hit him. They might not even be able to break his defense. This Zhao Kai didn't strengthen his genes by a lot. He depended completely on nutrient medicine to push his vitality stats up. Therefore, he simply wasn't a match for Feng Lin. Fighting one against all, Feng Lin crushed everything, defeating everyone with a single fist, displaying his shocking combat prowess. Clot glanced at his fallen subordinates. His expression was incomparably ugly. He didn't expect that these subordinates, who had always been arrogant, were actually so weak before Feng Lin. They were like wooden puppets and were helpless to retaliate. It seemed like today he had to go for broke. But the more powerful Feng Lin was, the more excited Clot would be. What secret was this exactly? It was able to allow Trash, who had been only at 0.4 vitality stats, to become so powerful this swiftly. If he could obtain it, who knows? Clot had a cold smile on his face like he had already succeeded. He slowly walked over as frigid air blasted from him. His blonde hair shone under the sun. It looked like he was a heavenly god that had descended down to the earth. Feng Lin, you are very strong. If you are willing to hand over your secret, I can treat you like my closest subordinate. By following me, there won't be a lack of benefits for you. Why don't you consider it? Clot had a sincere look on his face. Feng Lin laughed. He wasn't laughing because he was happy, he was laughing because of this person's conceit. Benefits? What kind of benefits could compare to the genetic equation? Having this ability was equivalent to him having the Midas touch. Did Clot think that he was a beggar begging for alms? He would never agree to it. Leaving aside the fact that I have no secret, even if I had one, why should I give it to you? If I can grow stronger depending on that, I can have everything. Why would I need your pitiful benefits? Clot, if you want to fight, let's fight. Stop insulting the IQ of a cultivator, Feng Lin coldly spoke. Since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being merciless. As he spoke, his smile turned colder. He no longer had any thoughts of recruiting Feng Lin. Bzzz. Gusts of wind blew and waves of coldness could be felt, causing the temperature in the surroundings to plunge. It was like suddenly entering a world of ice and snow. It was extremely frigid, so cold that it felt blood would even freeze inside one's body. Feng Lin immediately circulated his qi and blood to resist this unnatural coldness. Ice gene. He stared at Clot. Clot's body was covered with layers of ice crystals, resembling an ice armor. Freezing the heavens and earth. Clot laughed sinisterly as he unleashed a technique. Crack, crack. Numerous sounds rang out, and when Feng Lin lowered his head to look, he noticed that tendrils of frost had extended from the ground Clot was standing on, moving towards him. Everywhere the tendrils of frost passed by, everything was frozen solid. Feng Lin hurriedly dodged. Where can you escape to? Clot laughed malevolently and waved his hand. From the ground, the countless ice crystals all erected and shot over. It looked like 10,000 arrows shooting towards Feng Lin. Swish. An ear-piercing sound broke through space. Cold light sparkled as the tiny ice crystals flew through the air. Ding, ding, ding. With this concentrated burst of attacks, there was completely no way for Feng Lin to completely evade it. He could only strengthen his defense and endure it head-on. He stimulated his stone-birth gene, causing his skin to have stone-like properties. When the ice crystals pierced into him, they shattered into dust from the impact. But this was not the end yet. A wave of cold energy enveloped him, cutting deep into his bones, wanting to freeze him solid. He discovered that the external parts of his body were rapidly being frozen, even his blood was on the verge of freezing. Hack. Feng Lin drew a deep breath and boosted the circulation of his blood, causing warm currents to flow within his body, melting the frostiness. It's useless. You are truly naive if you want to use body warmth to thaw my ice. Clot coldly laughed. Raging winds now. Both of his hands were arranged in a ring-shaped gesture, as he moved them close to his chest. Bzzz. Countless gales of frosty wind gusted, causing ice crystals and frost to permeate the surroundings, blotting out the sun. They were wrapped up in wind energy and became a hurricane of frost, wanting to bury Feng Lin within. This clot didn't only awaken the frost gene. Feng Lin frowned. They, who were students, couldn't be considered true cultivators yet. The genes they awakened were all basic genes. Basic genes were known as basic genes because they only had one attribute. They were the basic elements of the genetic tree in one's body. This Jess clot could control ice and wind. This meant that he must have awakened at least two kinds of basic genes, the ice gene and the cold wind gene. This was different from the two awakened genes of Feng Lin. Clot's genes had similar attributes and could synergize well, complementing each other. The power they unleashed wasn't as simple as the effect of 1 + 1 = 2. Also, this clot seemed to have specially used a genetic martial art, allowing him to fuse the power of the two genes together to unleash extraordinary might. What a troublesome opponent. It seemed like, if he didn't go all out, things would really be bad. As Feng Lin made the judgment, he instantly shifted his posture into a stance. Invulnerable Vedra. He unleashed the ultimate secret of the Vedra subduing Devil Fist. He stimulated his stone birth gene, greatly boosting his defense as he became a stone man. Sword Dance of the White Ape. After that, Feng Lin soared into the air like an agile white ape leaping through the mountain gaps. His fingers were like swords, weaving about in an intricate manner, piercing straight towards his opponent's vital parts. Chapter 29, Earning a Huge Load. With the Vedra subduing Devil Fist for defense, Feng Lin took the initiative and attacked with the Monkey Fist. Although Feng Lin wasn't like Clot, who could unleash two types of genetic energy simultaneously through his profound genetic martial arts, he could still depend on his own method to unleash great power due to his strengthened monkey gene and stone birth gene. His chi and blood surged as warm currents circulated within his body, dispelling the cold. With his stone skin and iron bones, the ice blades that were as sharp as sabers all shattered upon impact. His own fingers were like swords, pierced effortlessly through the air, moving towards his target. What? Clot suddenly felt an immense sense of crisis. This scene was completely out of his expectation. In the past, once he unleashed his genetic energy, the cruel cold wind and a violent storm of ice and snow would definitely be sufficient to suppress his opponent, making them unable to move and could only obediently wait there to be subdued by him. However, this brat didn't seem to be affected at all. His attack was as tyrannical and domineering as before. Chi! The sound of something sharp breaking the air rang out. The snow and frost were broken through as a pair of sword fingers sped over. Clot dodged instinctively, but at the next moment, he felt a piercing pain in his cheek as fresh blood flowed. His handsome face was instantly marred. He touched his face gingerly as he stared at the blood on his fingers. He howled with rage, "You actually dared to disfigure me." To cultivators, strength was the most fundamental thing. What was the use of being handsome? Feng Lin shook his head. Although Clot's vitality stats were extremely high, he actually couldn't see through something as useless as external appearances. Just for this point alone, Feng Lin wouldn't view Clot as a true opponent. The cold wind was extremely chilly as frost and snow filled the skies. However, Feng Lin didn't seem to be affected. His movements were as smooth as before. Because of the lack of nutrients, his vitality stats couldn't compare to his opponent. But if one was speaking about the usage of genetic energy and the strengthening of his awakened genes, Feng Lin wouldn't lose to anyone in his age group. His 2 genes were strengthened to their limits. This meant that for those who had awakened only basic genes like him, not many people would be able to contend against him. Even Clot's ice gene and cold wind gene were useless. Feng Lin took a huge step forward, stomping on the frost and snow on the ground. What? Clot's eyes narrowed, resembling a needle. Feng Lin acted instantly. How would he give up on such a good opportunity? He lunged forward again, like a hungry tiger preying on sheep, with a speed as fast as lightning. Clot hurriedly evaded, moving to the side. A ruthless expression flashed in his eyes, kill. His fingers took the shape of claws as he lashed out with it. Frost chi gathered within his palm, causing 3 ice spears to manifest, shooting outward suddenly. If an ordinary human were to be hit by these, a bloody hole would definitely appear. Bang, bang, bang. Feng Lin's punches were like thunder. His tough fists that were like iron shattered the ice spears. Clot unleashed the technique again, as the coldness radiating from him intensified. Feng Lin didn't change his stance. He lifted his hands up and smashed them down while giving a huge roar, hong. His fist slammed right down on Clot's head. The power of his roar could shake the hearts of those who heard it. Clot's body instantly tensed as he involuntarily trembled. At this exact moment, Feng Lin had already closed in the distance. Feng Lin easily blocked his claw attacks. With a twist of his arm, Feng Lin's punches were akin to a poisonous dragon rushing out from a cave. The ice armor protecting Clot instantly crumbled apart. Clot screamed in misery as he was flung through the air. Just a single move was sufficient to determine the disparity between them. Clot was slammed onto the ground as his body convulsed involuntarily, lying there unmoving. Genetic potential plus 8%. Feng Lin only felt a dull feeling. There was only an increase of 8% to his genetic potential? He fought against so many students alone, wasting his time and energy, yet the reward gained was so pathetic. From this, one could see that defeating these people didn't bring about much pressure to Feng Lin. This battle was simply too easy. If just comparing vitality stats, these people didn't lose out to the combat masters of the illusory martial pagoda. In fact, their vitality stats were even higher than the combat masters. However, those combat masters, who had experienced countless battles, were completely different from them. These people's personalities were too weak and cowardly, and thus their martial arts were soft and without force as well. They had no way to unleash their true complete strength. This was especially so for Clot. His vitality stats was as high as 2.5, and his genetic energy was very strong too. Sadly, because his background was too well off, he was too pampered. The ice gene and cold wind gene were 2 kinds of high-grade basic genes with immense power. Yet, he could only use them in far-range attacks and didn't develop any techniques for close combat. Clearly, he was fearful of fighting head-on. Most likely, he had obtained such high points in the illusory martial pagoda by using the genetic abilities of his 2 genes and had attacked from afar, slowly grinding down the combat masters before he achieved victory. If it was a true fight against a human, his combat method had simply too many flaws. No wonder he could never win against the top genius of the school, Duan Yunlu. Geniuses who grew up under too much care couldn't be considered a genius. If this continued on, Clot would never be able to surpass his opponent. Was this really the second-ranked genius of his school? He was merely SOSO. Feng Lin felt dull and insipid. The trial of the illusory martial pagoda was a transformative experience to him. He ignored the dangers and challenged his limits to defeat his opponents, sustaining himself by adding genetic points to strengthen his gene at crucial moments, allowing him to gain combat experience, greatly boosting his battle methods. If just based on fighting instincts, he was far above almost everyone in his age group. In the entire school, other than Duan Yunlu, whom he had not met before, no one else would be able to give him pressure. Without pressure, that would mean that he would lack the motivation to improve further. Earth High School was one of the most common high schools in Huaxia City. Now, Feng Lin felt that this school was truly extremely tiny. "You dare to hit me?" Claude had a face filled with humiliation as he inclined his head. "You are reluctant to accept reality?" Feng Lin continued. "So what if I hit you? What can you do? Will you call the police to arrest me? Can you make the school expel me?" "No. You cannot do shit. You can only endure." His words were like knives stabbing into Claude's heart. Claude involuntarily shuddered when he heard that. It was true. The disparity between them was too great. If he wanted to call for help every time he lost, what a joke would he be? What would be the difference between him and a kid calling out for his mom every time he lost his lollipop? How could Claude bear to do such an incomparably embarrassing thing? If he did this, it would undoubtedly mean that he was telling everyone that he wasn't Feng Lin's opponent. Despite the number of his subordinates, Feng Lin fought against them alone and crushed them all. From now on, Claude wouldn't be the number 2 genius of the school anymore. Compared to this degree of humiliation, Claude wanted his glory and fame for being a genius more. If he lost everything, how could the always prideful him be able to accept it? Hence, he could only endure. "Just wait, Feng Lin, we are not finished yet." Claude clutched his face as he stood up. His body was shaking like he was suppressing his anger. However, he was helpless against Feng Lin. At the very least, he could only keep all his grievances pent up. Because, after crossing blows, it was clear that he definitely wasn't Feng Lin's opponent. How humiliating was this? He felt rage and sorrow in his heart. He turned and departed, wanting to leave here as quick as possible. He didn't want to cast another glance at this man who brought him shame and humiliation. "Hold it right there." Feng Lin's silhouette flashed as he appeared in front of Claude, blocking his path. "What do you want to do?" Claude was extremely wary against him. Feng Lin revealed a harmless smile, yet his words made Claude and his cronies feel as though they had just fallen into hell. "You guys want to leave just like this? All of you suddenly gang up on me wanting my secret and attacked me together. If I don't receive some compensation, how can I allow you all to leave? There isn't such a good thing in the world. Are you planning to extort me?" The eyes of Claude and his group widened, not daring to believe what they had just heard. "What are you talking about? How can this be considered extortion?" Feng Lin smiled calmly. "This is just compensation for my mind and spirit being disturbed, as I was frightened too badly. I also need some medical fee to restore my strength, which have been wasted in defending against all of your attacks." His words caused Claude and his subordinates to be so angered that they almost coughed out blood. "Stop dreaming!" they roared in anger. "Oh, I have no other solutions then." Feng Lin shook his head. He activated his personal microchip and projected a scene in the air. "Your current explosive improvement led to your domineering performance. You must have encountered some heavenly good fortune, right? If you tell me the secret, I'll give you 10,000 interstellar coins. You little country bumpkin, I bet you've never seen such a large fortune like 10,000 interstellar coins before, right?" In the scene, a familiar voice and figure could be seen. Claude and his subordinates almost had their eyes fall out of their heads. they all had an expression of terror on their faces now. Their earlier extortion of Fenglin was actually fully recorded by him. Could it be that he had predicted such incidents would happen to him and was long prepared? There's no choice, you guys assaulted me, I have to receive some compensation for that. This is a lawful request. If you guys refuse to pay, I will bring this recording to the school and tell them to put it up on the interstellar web. At that time, everyone in the interstellar era would be able to admire how heroic you guys are, ganging up to bully a single student. Don't blame me if I really do this then. Fenglin was smiling meaningfully the whole time. How sinister, you are so venomous. Clot and his subordinates wanted to cough out blood. They tried to steal a chicken but ended up losing the bait to lure it. They wanted initially to extort Fenglin for his secret but was now being extorted instead. They could only obediently pay up. If this recording went up, their futures would be over and their reputation in the school would forever be tarnished. I will give you 1,000 interstellar coins to destroy the recording. Clot glared at Fenglin with an ugly expression on his face. Are you treating me like a beggar? Fenglin shook his head. He couldn't be bothered to talk more with them, choosing to rush forward instead. What do you want to do? Let go of my coins. You dare to snatch my high-grade nutrient fluid? Ignoring all objections, Fenglin ruthlessly made his move, seizing all the valuables from Clot and his subordinates. These people were evidently not a match for Fenglin, and he even had a recording that could be used against them. They could only howl in rage, but they dared not resist. In total, Fenglin's harvests were a total of 100,000 interstellar coins, 20 bottles of mid-grade nutrient fluids, 2 bottles of green god type 3 nutrient medicine, and 3 portions of super protein. The majority of these were all obtained from Clot alone. What a good man. Fenglin was extremely satisfied. Even these lackeys were rich. Since they wanted to deliver themselves to him, he might as well take this chance to earn a huge load. After obtaining his harvest, he no longer paid any attention to these people and left here with a satisfied smile on his face. He wasn't afraid that these people would cause a commotion. Clot and his subordinates stayed where they were. Their faces were completely red as their bodies trembled violently from their suppressed emotions. If it weren't for the fact that they had all awakened mythological genes and had high vitality stats, they would truly be so angered as to cough out blood. Chapter 30, Virtual Female Sales Assistant. The scenery outside flew by. Fenglin was seated on the maglev train on the electric rail. He was filled with anticipation for this journey. Initially, he was prepared to return home after he left the school. But who would have thought that Clot and his subordinates had given him a gift of 100,000 interstellar coins? Since they had such good intentions, how could Fenglin not accept it? He immediately changed his mind. If he didn't spend this money, their value to him would be the same as scrap papers. Fenglin was lacking in nutrients. He wondered how many nutritious items could he buy with 100,000 coins. Clot's actions could truly be described as sending him coal during winter. What a good person. He felt so happy that he wanted nothing more than to give a bunch of red flowers to Clot and his gang to serve as encouragement. Fenglin suppressed the joy in his heart. Very swiftly, he came to his target destination. Before his eyes, a majestic building of 1,000 levels high could be seen. This was like a heavenly pillar, so tall that it touched the sky. It felt interesting and appealing and gave off a feel of science and technology. This was the symbol of the Huaxia city, the 1,000 Gold Building. This building was the largest business center in the entire city. It had 1,000 levels, and there were countless commodities and merchandise within, coming from the entire solar system. As the level grew higher, so would the value of the products in it. Respected customer, welcome to the 1,000 Gold Building. There are different varieties of items for you to choose from. Rest assured that they are all genuine goods at fair prices. We wish you a happy trip here. The sensors sensed Feng Lin's arrival. An automatic door opened as a gentle and melodious female voice rang out. The moment he entered, Feng Lin only felt that this place was incomparably imposing and majestic. Every level had a ring-shaped corridor filled with merchant shops. There were also many tourists and shoppers entering and exiting at every moment. Feng Lin used his identity microchip to access the limitless net of the Thousand Gold Building. Numerous messages flooded his mind, with pictures of various products such as the newest styled clothings, different types and different flavored nutrient fluids, the latest virtual games, etc. Also, all of these weren't expensive at all. The interstellar coin was a strong currency jointly issued by the different governments of humanity. Its purchasing power was shockingly high. For gold, silver, makeup products, all these kinds of extravagant items, just hundreds of interstellar coins would be sufficient to purchase them. In fact, with the development of humanity's science and technology, these valuable items of the ancient Earth era could now already be artificially synthesized and had become common commodities. The truly valuable items were those cultivation resources. Those items that could transform one's innate vitality, strengthen genes, and extend life. These items were extremely rare, the vast majority of them were naturally generated, and they could only be found in planets with the worst environment. The price of obtaining them was extremely high. Right now, only a few tens of types could be artificially synthesized. But despite so, the cost for such items were also sky-high. An example was super protein. Just a can of it would already cost thousands of interstellar coins. The more demand a product had, the more expensive it would be. Even common cultivation resources had a sky-high price. With regards to luxurious items, Feng Lin had no interest. What he wanted were those cultivation resources. What a good person! He mumbled as he scanned the catalog of items, involuntarily praising Clot and his gang again. For Jess Clot, not only did his family own a mine, but he even loved to help others and gave him such a huge present. If not, given Feng Lin's ordinary background, how would he have money to shop here? Welcome, respected customer. A grand welcome to the Thousand Gold Building. There are products that come from all corners of our solar system. As long as you want to shop, you can find almost everything here. A gentle voice rang out. A beam of light flashed as a virtual human silhouette appeared before Feng Lin. This virtual simulation seemed incredibly real. It was an Eastern beauty with black hair and eyes, and she was robed in ancient garb. Her limpid eyes were like autumn water and her features exuded elegance, causing it to be tough for someone to forget her the moment they had seen her once. I'm an intelligent virtual sales assistant. I will be happy to assist you. Fulfilling your needs is my life's greatest ambition. The virtual beauty smiled, her words causing his heart to tremble as he couldn't help but fantasize. However, something virtual would always be something virtual. No matter how beautiful this assistant was, she wasn't real. Feng Lin didn't feel surprised. This was one of the unique points of the Thousand Gold Building. They had these virtual beauties to serve the role as their customers' shopping assistant. Things were different compared to the ancient Earth era. Shopping in the interstellar era could be an extremely miserable matter. The interstellar era was too vast. There were countless resources, and new commodities would appear at every moment. If an individual wanted to browse through things one by one might not be able to finish browsing even if one dedicated her entire lifetime for it. There were simply too many items for sale here in the Thousand Gold Building. If Feng Lin depended on himself to find the items he wanted to buy, he wouldn't even be able to find them. it was very difficult for the human brain to remember accurately the details of every items. Hence, the 1,000 Gold building made use of their virtual tech and created virtual sale assistants. These virtual assistants were extremely intelligent and capable of normal speech to interact with humans. They had different genders according to the customer's preference and would even have different personalities when they were interacting with different people. But undoubtedly, all the virtual assistants were extremely handsome and beautiful, allowing the customers to feel joy when they looked at them. They could lead the customers to the items they wanted to purchase and introduce a summary of the origin and details of the product, allowing everyone to buy freely with no worries. Feng Lin glanced over. He could see that each customer in the building had a specific virtual assistant aiding them. Since Feng Lin was from ancient China, his mind automatically projected an Eastern woman that was dressed in clothing of the past Earth era. This virtual assistant was a beauty of extremely high standards in his vision. The science and technology of the interstellar era were incomparably developed. They penetrated all aspects of human lives and provided countless conveniences. Before Feng Lin came, he had already done his research and had enough understanding of the 1,000 Gold building. He didn't feel surprised and asked the virtual beauty in a natural manner, "Hi, can you tell me where can I buy cultivation resources? Please come with me." The virtual beauty smiled sweetly as she led the way. As they walked, she smiled and introduced the building to him. "Everyone in here knows that the higher they go, the more valuable the products would be. Below the 200th level, everything sold here are common products. Only after the 200th level would one be able to find the various type of cultivation resources and valuable items such as cultivation arts, medicine, and monster flesh. There's everything. As long as you can think of it, we would be sure to have it for sale. But even so, there are 800 levels here that are selling such items. If you search blindly, it would simply be a waste of time. Hence, you can just let me know what items you are looking to buy, and I can recommend you shops that have the best quality to price comparison." The voice of the virtual beauty was as melodious as the chirping of birds. She clearly summarized the situation of the 1,000 Gold building for him. Feng Lin nodded after he heard that, appreciating the knowledge. This was the first time he came here, thus, he was inexperienced and didn't know much. With such a capable virtual assistant, there would be no need for him to worry as to what he wanted to shop. Feng Lin had long thought about it. The most important thing now was to resolve his deficiency of nutrients, which led to the overdraft of his life force. This was of paramount importance. He could push the other matters back for now. He suddenly thought of a famous gene potion used by cultivators. It was known as the Potion of Life.